Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into a truly brilliant literary experiment, a fascinating text titled Salammbô at the Edge of the Abyss. Now this isn't just your standard story. It's really more of a meticulously crafted map of Western consciousness, exploring exactly how empires view systemic suffering. Throughout this explainer, we're going to trace this breathtaking narrative arc, jumping across centuries to examine how the machinery of power justifies its own existence, and ultimately the tragic human cost it leaves right in its wake.
Okay, let's dive into this. The authors anchor this entire work on one striking recurring motif, captured perfectly in this epigraph right here: the sun. It's immense, it's yellow, and it is completely, utterly indifferent. Throughout the text, whether it's shining down on a beautiful golden necklace or a dying soldier, the sun provides the exact same quality of light. It sheds care on absolutely nothing. And this sets up the book's central terrifying argument, that the universe just performs its basic operations without any judgment whatsoever, leaving the morality of our systems entirely in our own hands.
To really grasp this, we'll be walking through a structured, chronological triptych today. We've got 1, 3 voices, 1 sun. 2, Carthage, the golden hammer. 3, Congo, the sickly eye. 4, Algiers, the blazing blade. And finally, 5, the missing column. It's a fascinating thematic evolution.
Part 1, 3 voices, 1 sun, the author's method. Here we see a really bold structural proposition. And this brilliantly illustrates the evolution of Western consciousness. See, the authors do something wild here. They take one mutating sentence about that sun rising indifferently over the world, and they pass it through 3 totally distinct literary voices. First, they emulate Gustave Flaubert's epic, godlike precision to describe ancient Carthage. Then, they shift gears into Joseph Conrad's psychological, dense moral fog to tackle the colonial Congo. And finally, they strip absolutely everything away, using Albert Camus' stark existential lucidity for 1950s Algiers. As we move from style to style, we're actually mapping our decreasing ability to stop systemic suffering, even as we're seeing it with more and more clarity.
Just to ground us in the sheer historical scope of this book, we're making some vast temporal jumps. We start way back in 241 BC, leap forward to 1899, and land in 1957. That's 3 totally different centuries, 3 different empires, all being watched by the exact same indifferent sun.
Moving into Part 2, Carthage, the golden hammer, the hubris of empire. Channeling Flaubert's epic scale, we are instantly dropped into 241 BC. The great city of Carthage, this massive commercial powerhouse, has just finished a hugely expensive war. And camped right outside their walls, 70,000. That is a massive, overwhelming number of unpaid mercenaries just wasting away in the filth of the plains of Megara. These men fought Carthage's wars, right? And now they expect the silver they were promised. But the city's administrators, they just deal with them using spreadsheets and accounting. It highlights this chilling theme. Human bodies are treated not as living, breathing people, but as a deferred commercial commodity. Carthage basically calculates that these guys can just wait. To the empire, the mercenaries' hunger is literally just a line item that hasn't been balanced yet.
Naturally, this tension hits an absolute boiling point. Enter Salammbô, the daughter of Carthage's greatest general, who tries to intervene. She takes the zymph, the single most sacred object in the city, the veil of the goddess Tanit, and offers it to the mercenary leader, Mathos. It's such a stunning, desperate collision. She's offering him divine acknowledgement, right? A sacred debt. But Mathos looks at this priceless divine object and realizes a pretty brutal truth. A goddess's veil cannot feed 70,000 starving men. Divine accounting means absolutely nothing to physical hunger. So when the silver doesn't show up, the slaughter begins. And through it all, the sun just watches without a blink.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Part 3, Congo, the sickly eye, the bureaucratization of horror.
We jump all the way to 1899, deep in the upper Congo River, plunging straight into Conrad's psychological fog. Here, we meet this feverish Belgian officer named Freisleben, and his steamboat is completely stuck on a mudbank. Up on deck, there's 43 tusks of ivory. Down below is his pilot, Macarna. Now, Freisleben assumes this grounding is just an accident, but actually, Macarna has intentionally stalled the boat. Why? To give a local village 11 days to hide from the company's exploitation.
This grounding steamer acts as this brilliant literary device. It represents an entire massive imperial system of extraction that is just stubbornly, momentarily stalled out, and it forces this officer to actually sit there and observe the horrifying reality around him.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the intense conflict happening right within the company ledger that Freisleben is clutching in his fevered mind. It meticulously accounts for the wealth, the ivory, the francs, the rubber. But notice what's missing. Notice the erased faces. That's the missing column. The ledger documents the wealth perfectly, but it completely and intentionally erases the human bodies, the suffering, and the lives that were literally consumed to extract it. The horror isn't just the sheer physical violence, it's the meticulous, deliberate erasure of those victims from the official record.
And that brings us to the station of an agent named Kurtz. Freisleben travels upriver, finds Kurtz dying, and Kurtz just lays out this terrifying progression of the whole colonial dispensation. Step 1. You claim you're bringing the light of civilization. Step 2. You name the world, put it in ledgers, assert your absolute authority over it. Step 3. You systematically dissolve and destroy anything and anyone that refuses to fit neatly into those ledgers. We literally see the terrifying result of this logic physically manifested right outside Kurtz's window, where the heads of 19 local men who didn't meet their rubber quotas are just displayed on posts. Then, on his deathbed, Kurtz delivers this incredibly haunting realization to Freisleben. He says, "The horror is not that we discovered this. The horror is that we knew." The text argues so powerfully here that the cruelty wasn't some kind of wild accident of the jungle. No way. It was a deliberate, bureaucratic feature designed by men with soft hands sitting in comfortable offices back in Brussels. The system required that violence to function, and that missing column, that was part of the design all along. Transitioning now to part 4. Algiers, the blazing blade, the stripped illusion. So it's 1957. The grand illusions of Flaubert's gods, gone. The dense psychological justifications of Conrad's colonialists, totally gone. They've been replaced by Camus' stripped existential lucidity. We're inside Barbarousse prison in Algiers. A 31-year-old condemned man named Youssef Merzougi is waiting for the 5 o'clock guillotine. He's been locked in this cell for 14 months. The French Republic is actively fighting a war that it refuses to legally even call a war. And at 5 a.m., they're going to execute him using a machine that was originally designed by a physician for quote-unquote democratic efficiency, but is now just being used as a cold, systemic tool for state elimination. Faced with this ultimate, completely indifferent state machine, the authors really force us to focus intensely on the hyper-specific physical realities of Youssef's final moments. He isn't having these sweeping, grand philosophical epiphanies. Instead, he notices the warmth of the stone floor on his bare feet. He stares at this one specific crack in the white ceiling that he's memorized over the last 14 months. He feels a very specific, deeply human desire just for a cigarette. The authors are brilliantly contrasting the massive, faceless weight of the state's execution apparatus against the tiny, irreducible humanity of the individual it's about to erase.
So, the crucial point is coming up here in part 5, the missing column. Let's synthesize this whole narrative.
When we look across Carthage, the Congo, and Algiers, the underlying mechanics of power remain just startlingly similar. We're seeing a continuous, systemic erasure of human lives across centuries. Whether it's the unpaid mercenaries left to starve in the dust, the nameless Congolese workers reduced to literally nothing but missing columns in a ledger, or the condemned man reduced to an administrative execution at dawn. And watching over all of it across all 3 centuries is that exact same indifferent sun. A sun that rises over the beautiful and the dying, making no distinction at all. The universe doesn't offer a moral rescue here. The accountability rests entirely on us.
Which leaves us with the ultimate, really provocative question posed by this text. Who fills the missing column today? As we look around at the systems and the structures operating in our own modern time, who is being written out of the ledger? Who's bearing the real human cost that our official reports simply refuse to name? It's a massive challenge that demands we look closely at our own world, directly into the light, and absolutely refuse to look away.